Our Fish the Moment live stream. Today we have a pretty special one. Fish the Moment live stream number 100. I cannot believe we've done 100 live streams. I've been doing these for almost 3 years now, on and off, and I really appreciate all the guys who have watched the live streams and the podcast since the very beginning. Today we have a really special episode. We're actually going to be on the water today, and I'm going to be fishing here. And oh, one second here, got my little phone over here so I can see your chat and it's playing. First time we've ever done this, so bear with me if there's any technical difficulties. Got the cell phone out trying to record this on site on the lake, and the goal today in this live stream is to show you how I go on a lake that I haven't been to in like 6 months and find fish offshore. Today we have a really challenging situation because we're on a small lake that's by my house that is usually a really good fishery, but in the summertime it can be really tough. So I want to kind of go through my whole process of having how I find the fish, how I set up on them, how I cast to them, how I catch them, all those different things. And so that is kind of the deal today. I want to show you guys really quick. I'm just going to grab the camera here. We're going to do this a couple times, just kind of grabbing the camera and stuff. I want to show you the setup I have going on here on this lake. Here it is. It's this little lake by my house, and basically if we take a look, we can see that there are no contour lines on this lake, literally none. And I also don't have any waypoints on this lake. All my waypoints are actually on that graph up there, and I purposely didn't have any waypoints on this graph, so I had to go find everything again myself. So I'm not just fishing history. You guys don't think I'm just, you know, faking it or whatever. And the only thing I've done today is I've driven around the corner to this cove so I have a better angle with the light. So I literally have no idea where anything is. I mean, I have a general idea because I fished this lake quite a few times, but I don't know like where specific spots are. I'm gonna have to graph it. I'm gonna have to do it. And I'm gonna show you how I set up everything here so that you guys can hopefully catch some fish. So I'm just going to go through here, spin the boat around, and I'm just gonna kind of walk you step by step through my whole process here. Let me know in the stream, by the way, if you can hear me okay. I have a microphone connected into this, so I wanna make sure it's all working. Again, never done this style of live stream before, so hopefully it's all sounding okay, especially with the engine noise and stuff. So just let me know if there's wind, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Everything coming through fine, awesome. So big thing, to call out when I first start graphing is first you gotta make sure you have your life jacket. So got my trusty PFD on here. I always wear a life jacket when the big engine's running, so that's just a big thing that I always like to call out. And the other thing to call out is that we're gonna be doing a bunch of giveaways tonight. And if you guys stick around at different points in the stream, we're gonna be doing giveaways for Bridgeford beef jerky. We're gonna be giving away some Fish the Moment offshore jig by Jewel Bait. And if you stay to the very end, I'm also gonna be giving away my old Humminbird Onyx 10 fish finder with all my waypoints. I kind of wish I actually had that graph on my boat right now because I actually have a really detailed map that I've made by graphing through this lake, and I know where all the stuff is on that map. But I'm literally going to give away a $3,000 fish finder. It's an old version, but a fish finder that I used for years on this channel at the end of this live stream. So the only way we're going to get that to happen though is if we can get 500 people on this live stream. So be sharing it out. I'll mention it throughout the stream. Share it out. If we can get 500 people on this live stream, by the end of the night, in the next 2 hours, I'll give away that fish finder to someone on the stream. So anyways, let's just start graphing here. And first thing I want to show you, I'm gonna take this camera again. We're gonna do this kind of back and forth every once in a while with the camera, is, let me turn away from the sun. Basically, here's my setup that I use when I'm graphing 95% of the time. I have my side imaging over here. I have my down imaging view on my helix unit, and I have my mapping. So I got mapping, I have my down imaging and my side imaging. Now obviously the mapping is useless right now because there's no contour maps here, but basically if you have the mapping here and then your down imaging, side imaging, you get all the different views you need. Now one thing that I always do when I get to the lake, regardless of what's happening, is I like to actually pull up the down imaging view on my fish finder. Now I'm just going to get out here kind of more towards some deep water and then spin the boat so you can not have this glare all over the screen. But basically what I'm going to try to do is crank up my sensitivity. So you can see here my sensitivity on my graph is currently set at 8. I'm going to crank my sensitivity up and I'm going to try to find the thermocline. And on this lake, the thermocline is, holy crap, it's really shallow. I thought it was gonna be deeper than that. The thermocline is sitting up here in 9 feet of water. I'm watching this through the phone, so I'm just seeing this for the first time. But there's the thermocline. I cranked my sensitivity up to 19. There it is. Now, that's kind of interesting because I honestly don't know any spots that are shallower than 9 feet offshore on this lake. That's kind of going to be a little bit of a challenge, just because most of the offshore spots that I fish out here are deeper than that. And sorry if some of the, we're trying to get the camera work going, so sorry if we're kind of back and forth a little bit, but basically I need to now find some spots. Because that thermocline is in 9 feet, I have to find some 9-foot offshore areas. Almost everything I fish out here offshore in the past is like probably 16 to 20 foot deep. So that's actually throwing a kind of a wrench in my plans already, but that's what happens when you get out in the lake, guys. You're not always going to have the fish doing exactly what you want them to do. That's why we fish the moment. And again, I haven't been out here in like 6 months, so I literally didn't know that's what was gonna happen today. So we're just gonna roll with it. So I'm gonna take my sensitivity back down here, and what I'm gonna do is I have to now think about where are areas that are 8 foot of water, 7, 8, 9 foot of water on this lake. And again, I don't have any contour map lines here. This lake doesn't have a contour map, but I know just from past experience that right around in this section of the lake, there's a nice road bed that tops out in 7 or 8 feet in some places. Off the top of my head, there's a ditch way in the back here with a creek channel I think is a little bit shallower, maybe like an 8, 9 foot of water on the edge of a ditch. And then there's a couple other like random stuff throughout here that we can just graph. I don't think I've caught fish on any of those things before. I know I've graphed them in the past, so we're gonna probably catch a fish on the spot I've never fished before in my life today during this stream, and that'll be fun. So basically what I'm gonna start doing is I'm just gonna start graphing. And one thing that a lot of guys don't realize when I go on the lake is that I spend a ton of time graphing. I probably spend 50 to 60% of every single fishing day graphing. So that means if I'm out on the lake for 8 hours, I'm gonna spend 5, maybe 4 to 5 hours of that 8 hours graphing. So tonight, we're gonna be out for 2 hours. I might have to graph for 1 hour and 15 minutes before we find any fish to actually catch. And so we're just gonna kind of roll by the seat of our pants here, graph around and try to find something interesting. And I'm just gonna be kind of monitoring questions and stuff like that to kind of figure out what's happening right now. I'm just gonna drive around, and while I'm doing this, ask some questions in the stream, and I will try to answer them the best I can. So David said that's too shallow for a thermocline, probably algae line. So I've seen thermoclines that are set up in that 7, 8 foot. If you jump in the lake, actually, you can feel the temperature change with your feet. So I have seen them that shallow. This lake is not a very deep lake. So on real shallow lakes, that can definitely be the case. And what I'm probably gonna have to do today, guys, is rely less on my down imaging and more on my side scan, on the side imaging of my fish finder. When these fish are setting up in 6, 7, 8 foot of water offshore, it's not great to graph directly over the top of those fish with your down imaging. So instead, I'm gonna be using my side imaging to hopefully find some areas in that depth range. So what I basically did right now, guys, is I just put my boat, I'm trying to keep it in like 9 foot of water, 8, 9 foot of water. I'm getting a little bit deep. I know that it's kind of tapering up in this area. There's some random stuff out here. There's like a road bed. There's some stuff out here that comes up shallower. And honestly, all I'm doing right now is just kind of idling in a zigzag pattern around this area to get a sense of where everything is. Yeah, without contour lines on a lake like this is the best way to do it, is literally just get on the graph and just zigzag. And what I'm looking for specifically on my fish finder right now, especially on my side imaging, is I want to find a super hard break. I want to find a drop off that goes from, let's say, 7 foot of water down to 12 to 15 foot of water very sharply. Here's a kind of a good example right here. It goes from 7 to 12 foot. And I'm looking for something like that that has some fish or some bait fish around it. Right now we're in the end of August, or middle of August, sorry. And in the middle of August, some of the best areas you're gonna find are places where you have a sharp drop off, a sharp break from shallower to deeper water. So if I can find some place up here that's in 6, 7 foot of water, dropping into 12 foot, that's probably gonna be an ideal looking area. And if I find anything really good, I'll show it to you here on my fish finder. But for now, we're just kind of rolling. Let me see what the questions are. How much water clarity is there? When I get a fishing lure in, I would expect, just kind of looking at it, I bet we have like 1.5 foot, 2 foot of visibility, so it's not like it's super clear. Now here, this is like, man, that looks so good. So let me pause the screen here. I just want to show you guys this screen real quick, just to show you something that looks really good. So this looks great, but there's nothing really out here. So if we take a look, here's kind of an area that looks great to me in the sense that we have a nice drop-off, steep drop-off right here. We have a nice drop-off from 7 foot down to 15 foot right here, and you can see it on the 2D sonar also, but there's definitely not any bait fish or any activity around this drop. So even though the drop is in perfect depth, we have a nice drop-off here, things like that, without any bait fish, without any fish, I just don't think there's really going to be much activity up there. So what I'm going to have to do is just continue graphing until I find some of that bait fish. Not every spot that's in 7 dropping into 15 foot is going to be effective on this lake. Even if there's a rock pile or a brush pile or something down there, you need to have presence of life, bait fish, fish, something like that to get these fish to actually eat and feed. So we're just gonna keep circling this area for just a few more minutes, kind of see if we can find anything interesting. Side imaging right now is helping me out quite a bit because I can kind of scan right and left of the boat, really see what's going on. I have my range on my side imaging set to 75 feet right now because I'm not only just looking for, ooh, what is that? Uh-oh, we may have just found something. Let's see here. Let me pull up full screen side imaging. I'm gonna graph over this, but if we come pull this up over here, I'm just gonna pause the screen for a second. If we look right here on my side imaging screen, you can see, let me stop the boat real quick. You see over here, you can actually see in the shadow of some of these, whatever the stick-ups are, logs, you can see a handful of fish right here. So you can see a dot right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dots right there on that side imaging. And right there are a few fish on the side scan. And because these fish are super shallow, 8 foot of water, it's gonna be really, really hard for me to graph those with down imaging. So what I'm actually going to do to find these fish is I'm gonna drop a waypoint right here. You can see those fish. Are those bass? It's hard to tell. The trick right now is because these fish are on down imaging as opposed, or on side imaging as opposed to down imaging, I can't tell if those are gonna be bass, if those are going to be crappie, bluegill, anything like that, just for the fact that I'm seeing them on side scan. The way I identify bass with down imaging is, way I identify bass is with down imaging. I actually will go put down imaging over those fish, graph over them, and see how they're positioned. Are they grouped up tight? Are they spread out? Things like that. So without knowing that, I'm not going to be able to tell what those fish are. So what I'm going to have to do is drop a waypoint on these fish, and I'm actually going to go up there and look at them with my Garmin live scope and with the 360 imaging to see if I can tell a little bit better if they're bass or not. And that's the nice thing about having the live scope. It really helps out, kind of getting this, getting some of these shallower fish found. And so I'm just going to take a couple minutes. Actually need to turn all my live scope and stuff on. Let me turn this on, set this over here to standby mode. I don't even have any of my graphs on it, my trolling motor on, so we're just gonna probably should have been a little bit more prepared with all that stuff, but that's just how it goes. So what I'm gonna do real quick is just grab the camera and I'll show you a couple baits that I have set up here real quick. So let me grab this real quick. We're just kind of doing a little switch of the camera gear here. Just give us a second because I need to grab this. Sorry guys, this can be a little bit clumsy. Here we go. Okay, so here's the gear I have set up while my fish finders are getting set and organized. Okay, here we go. So here's the setups I got for all my rods today. I kind of just brought a little mix of baits. I didn't really know if the water was gonna be clear or dirty or what was going on. So first thing I have here that's tried and true bait in the summertime is a shaky head worm, black shaky head worm with a 1/4 ounce jewel bait shaky head on the back of it, or for the head. This is a great August bait in some dirtier water. I thought the water might be a little bit stained. Looks like a pretty good choice. Another bait that I have here that probably is gonna be a big player is going to be a 10-inch Zoom Old Monster. That's probably gonna be one of my go-to baits today, along with that trick worm. And I got a few other baits, a crankbait, a flutter spoon, football jig, a big spinner bait. I don't think those are gonna be much of a player today. I'm actually gonna start with that shaky head because I think that fishing's gonna be a little bit tricky today. Maybe I'll throw the jig up there, football jig a little bit too, and that big worm. But I'm gonna start with the shaky head. And while we're doing that, I'm going to put this on there. So we're just gonna put that on a tripod. So just bear with us again with the setup. We're trying to get all this stuff set up. So if the camera's shaking a little bit, we're trying to get that organized. So let me get this going right here. Okay, where is that waypoint? Okay, so I need to find that waypoint real quick. Sometimes when I get my graphs set up, they don't link up properly. Okay. Let's see here. Give me a second, guys, while we kind of get some stuff squared away. Okay, there we go. Got that thing found. So let me kind of move around here. And what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to show you guys how I kind of go about this. So I currently have my live scope set up. I got Mega 360 going. And we're going to work our way to that waypoint we just marked. It's just up here a little bit. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just driving to that waypoint with my trolling motor. And while I'm doing that, I'm just kind of scanning around with the live scope. If I find something interesting, I'll pull the camera up here to do the live scope. But we're just going to keep it in the back for now, just so you can get a better perspective of what I'm doing. And let's see here. Move on up here. Okay, I'm gonna fire that worm up there. There's a little bit of commotion going on down here. A second here. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just waiting for the charts to load up my waypoints. Sometimes when I just get in the boat right off the bat, there they are, okay. When I first get in the boat right off the bat, the waypoints don't load in. I need to give it a second. So now we're all linked up. So now I'm gonna make my move up here. I didn't want to get too far on top of that spot. One thing that I do, guys, when I'm fishing offshore is I like to stay as far away from my offshore spots as physically possible. So I will never make a move up towards an offshore area if I'm not 100% sure I know where it is. The worst thing you can do when fishing offshore is to get right up on top of that spot, get within 20, 30 feet of it, and then run your trolling motor right over those fish. That is not a good deal at all. So I'm just gonna, I probably am about 150 yards, 200 yards, maybe less than that, 100 yards from that spot, 75 yards, something like that. So we're gonna make our way up, and I always give myself a good amount of distance to work my way towards the spot. I'm not trying to pull up and just stop right on top of that spot. And if you've watched my videos before, you've seen how I use my range rings. I'll show you guys that here in a second too, once we kind of get all the camera stuff organized and get all the fish finder stuff organized. Again, this is our first time doing these on the water live, so it may be a little bit chaotic, but we should be good now. So we're just gonna roll up here. Okay, so we're getting within range of that spot I saw. Now I'm just gonna scan around with my live scope to see if there's anything up there. Oh yeah, I think I see a little wad of fish up there, right where we saw that earlier. So I'm gonna fire a cast up there. If you want to bring that camera up here, I'll kind of show the guys the screen. They're really tough to pick out, these fish, and this live scope stuff in shallow water can get a little bit tricky. We're just gonna bring that camera up here. So if I show you guys what I'm looking at here, you can see right in here, right here, there are a handful. Oh gosh, 1 second. While I'm trying to do this, we drifted right in front of a grass mat and it's covering up the fish. Give me a second. This is the tricky part of doing this live. Okay, right there. Make sure I don't get too close to him. Back us up, okay. So if we take a look, you can see him right there. You see a dot right there. There's a dot right there. There's another dot right there. Several dots right here, 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 here. They're on that stuff. Those, it's really hard to tell if those are bass or if those are crappie or something else weird. Not 100% sure. Now I'm snagging some grass over here. This live stuff is difficult, guys. There's a little bit of offshore grass out here, but it's only in like a couple feet of water, so that's kind of maybe probably not gonna be a player, but there was a bunch of rock out here where I was seeing those fish. So we're gonna position right on that. Basically, I can see them on the live scope right here, so I'm gonna fire straight out in front of the boat, out in that area. Here's that waypoint, by the way, guys, I'm casting at. So you can see my waypoints are right here, and here's one of my waypoints, here's another group. That's the group we just marked earlier. I marked 2 of them. These are my old waypoints I've had from this lake in the past on my other graph. But these right here are those waypoints, and we're actually a little bit far away, so I have my ring here set to 100 feet, so we need to move a little bit closer, but you can definitely see that there's some fish kind of suspended out in front of that little rocky outcropping, and we're gonna roll up there and see if we can find anything. Now, one thing, once I kind of get in that zone that I feel like is those fish are setting up in, I'm not going to make a ton of casts on these fish, guys, because if they're up there and they're bass and they want to bite, they're gonna bite pretty quick. I don't hardly ever get bit on a spot after making more than 5 or 6 casts. So when I get up into position, I feel like I'm gonna hit those fish right on the head, like right there. If I feel like I'm in the zone, I'm gonna throw that thing up there. I'm gonna make 5, 6, 7 casts, maybe throw the shaky head a couple times, pick up a crankbait or a 10-inch worm or something, throw that a couple times. And if I don't get bit, I'm gonna move on, because we don't have that much time to fish today. We're only on live for 2 hours, and I find that I get 75–80% of my bites offshore with my first 5 casts, and probably 95% of the fish, good fish I catch, are within my first 5 casts. So if I hang out and fish this spot, I might be able to pick up one little fish here or there, but I don't waste a lot of time setting up on one spot. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth my time. I want to find aggressive, active fish. That's always how I do it. So I'm not wasting a bunch of time sitting here just like picking off every fish that's around. I want an active group. A little bit closer on him. I hit that rocky spot on the very end of my last cast. Doesn't look like there's a lot of fish up there. It looked like there were more. Maybe they're just cruising up here. It could have just been a random group of fish that's roaming. That's the one thing that's tricky about these shallow water fish, guys, is that if you don't have the ability to graph them with down imaging, it's hard to tell if they've stayed in that same spot unless you regraph them over and over again. But if you regraph them multiple times, there's a chance that you might spook them. So you don't want to do that either. So I'm kind of trying to be a little bit more cautious than usual. If I was graphing in, let's say, 15 or 20 foot of water, I could just regraph those fish, and with more certainty, I could tell you, yes, there's fish there and I can catch them. When they're set up in 8 foot of water, 7 foot of water, it's more of a identify the fish, make a few casts, 5, 6 casts. If you don't get bit, then move on and try to find another spot, just because you can't regraph them to verify and make sure that they are what you think they are. So I made 3 casts with the shaky head. I'm gonna go to the football jig just for a couple casts. This is the Fish Moment Offshore jig. We're gonna be giving a couple of these away later on in the stream, so stay tuned for that. Still some fish up there. If we take a look on the screen down here, you can see at the very end of my cast, and I'm kind of even a little bit far away from it, but I'm doing that on purpose. You can see, and it's really fuzzy on this when you get shallow water on this live scope, but you can see right here, there's a little bit of a rise. There's a couple fish just suspended out here, but there's a few little blobs, dots that you can see that sometimes move and pulse up on top of that rock. It's hard to explain how it looks when you're up here in 6 foot of water with that live scope, but you can see a couple of like little light bulbs that flash every once in a while. It's probably hard to see on the live, but there's definitely a handful of fish up there. They're just, right there's one, right there's one, there's another one right there. So they're up there. They just maybe aren't super active. There's another one right there. I'm not sure exactly what I need to do to trigger them, but again, I'm not gonna, that rock. I'm not gonna sit here and mess with them too long. And actually on that note, I'm gonna go get my jig back and then we're gonna probably roll to the next spot. So we'll speed it up here a little bit. And we'll get this jig back. Tips on getting jigs back. I lose a lot of jigs and get a lot of jigs hung up just because you get them hung in the rocks and things like that. And it's kind of unavoidable. So just a tip on getting them. What I do is I get right over the top of that jig, get on the back side of it, and pull. Usually it'll come right out if you just get on the back side of it. That jig with that double cable guard, weed guard on there, that offshore jig from Fish the Moment offshore jig, you're not going to get the hook hung up in anything. It's just going to get that head wedged a little bit. So if you just get on the back side of it, you'll always pull it free. So let's get rolling. We're going to try to find another spot. There's a bunch of stuff out here, but there's so much going on. There's like road beds and there's everything going on. This is a very complex area. Basically, there's just rock and road and everything in this whole area. And it's a little bit intimidating when I'm trying to find fish quickly. And so what I like to do, guys, when I pull up an area like this, I'll do a quick scan. If I feel like I find a group of fish that's good, I'll pull up, I'll make a couple casts, but I'm gonna fail fast. I didn't get any bites, saw some fish up there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm now gonna move from this area and we're gonna keep moving up the lake where I know there's less cover. There's less stuff going on. There's more rock and stuff in this area of the lake than anywhere. But further up the lake, there's isolated pieces of cover, maybe an isolated brush pile, an isolated log. Those areas a lot of times are a lot more effective when you have a shorter period of time to fish because all the fish in the area are going to be attracted to that one object. It's also a lot easier to identify the obvious areas. And I know this time of year too, if you can find an isolated log or a brush pile, you can catch some big ones doing that. So that's kind of the plan right now. I'm just going to leave everything rolling and we're just going to keep idling here. So let me kind of put this away and we're just going to keep going. While we're continuing to idle, I'll just answer a few questions here. So we're going to keep idling. So again, saw a handful of fish in this area. It's not like there weren't fish here. Saw them on the graph, pulled up, made 5 or 6 casts, boom, 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 done. That's how I always do it, guys. I'm a percentage guy. I'm not over here trying to fish every single spot for a long period of time. If these fish are there and they're gonna bite, I'm gonna fish it real quick and I'm gonna catch them. If not, I'm moving on. So that's kind of the game plan we're gonna roll with the rest of the day. So now it's kind of nice. We have some waypoints that popped in from past fishing trips when I turned on that unit. So I do have a few brush piles and stuff to kind of graph over, but I'm gonna kind of ignore them. I'm not actually gonna even look at this screen just because I don't really like to fish history very much. Old brush piles I've marked in the past are not really that helpful for me, honestly, because a lot of those brush piles are deeper. And I'm gonna waste a bunch of my day, come on now, here we go. I'm gonna waste a bunch of my day graphing stuff that's not productive if I'm sitting there focused on brush piles I've caught them on in the past. That's one thing that you guys will see in a lot of my videos. I don't really fish the same areas very often in any of my videos just because most of the time the conditions change. A lot of the brush piles I've caught fish on in the past out here, they're too deep. And if I'm really getting focused on like, oh, I've caught him here, I've caught him there in the past, I'm just gonna not catch any fish because I'm fishing history, I'm not fishing what's going on in the present moment. So just found another nice little drop off ledge kind of deal here. Not seeing too much going on around it. We're just gonna make a couple passes. Whenever I find something interesting, guys, I like to make a couple passes around it, just because a lot of times when you graph over a spot, if you see a hard edge or a hard drop off and don't see any fish on your first pass, it may be that you just hit it from a bad angle. Your sonar cones and stuff, they're not that wide. So if you graph something and it looks even remotely interesting, I'll re-graph it again just to see if there's anything else that I'm missing. And when I graph this area, I'm just kind of re-graphing it. It doesn't look like there's anything I'm missing. There's a little bit of grass up there, but nothing really that fancy. So we're gonna keep rolling. Now, again, I don't have contour lines right now, so if I had my contour map, this would make things a little bit easier too, because I could run straight to the most obvious drop-offs and ledges and stuff. Without it, I'm kind of just rolling blind. Again, I kind of know what's going on, but I don't know this like that well to know exactly where every major break and every spot is. So we're just gonna graph and find some fish. Now, one thing a lot of guys do ask me about when I'm like my graphing and stuff, how fast should I be graphing? Well, usually I will graph basically at somewhere between 3 to 4 miles an hour. Ideally, I like to graph around close to as 4 miles an hour as possible. When you're graphing at less than 4 miles an hour, you're basically not maximizing the distance you cover. But if you graph more than 4 miles an hour, your screen starts to get all kind of fuzzy and blurry. So I try to graph it as close to 4 miles an hour. Right now I'm at 3.8 miles per hour. That allows me to cover as much water as possible. And if I can graph at 3.5 or 4 miles an hour versus 2.5 miles an hour, I'm gonna cover a mile more water every single hour that I'm graphing. And for me, that's really important because I wanna cover as much ground as possible. So we're just gonna keep going here. We may head back over to that roadbed area here if I don't find anything else in this area, because there are a bunch of fish in that area. You can see them on the graph, but it's a little bit overwhelming for the short period of time we have. If I was fishing for an entire day, I might try that. I might try to actually go and find some fish around those roadbed deals. But when we only have 2 hours of fish, I'm kind of looking for like an isolated brush pile or something else that's a little bit less difficult. And we got something right there. Got a brush pile. I'll show this on the camera here. On my side imaging here, you can see, oh crap, that's not what I wanted. My side imaging here, you can see there's a nice tree right there. So we're just gonna spin around. We're just gonna try to regraph that tree really fast. See if there's anything on it. It's a little bit deep. I didn't even know this tree was there. I don't think I have a waypoint on it or anything from the past, so I'll hand this back. Just gonna regraph that. Again, I got my, for those who kind of missed the intro here, I got my thermocline right now setting up like in 9 foot of water range, so it's a little bit shallow. So I'm trying to find some shallower areas, and I don't really fish that shallow on this lake that often, so I don't really know where any spots are that are that shallow, so we're just kind of rolling with it. Most of the good stuff is deeper, so that is a little unfortunate just based on my, I can't use many past history to help me find fish. I have to actually fish the moment, which is what you guys want to see anyways. Okay, so here we go. Got a nice lay down right there. Big tree. A lot of guys would say, oh man, look at that tree. It looks absolutely perfect. I'm gonna go fish that. Well, if we take a look at this tree, what you'll see is that that tree is in 15 feet of water right there, 15 foot. And the top of that tree is out in like 7 foot, but there's no dots, there's nothing around that tree. It's pretty much just barren. And because there's no bait fish around, there's nothing really interesting around it, I'm gonna skip it. Even though it looks like it might be a really good tree at some point in the year, it doesn't mean that it's good right now. And I see that a big problem that a lot of anglers have is that they'll see a brush pile and they'll be like, oh, I gotta go fish it. It's a brush pile, it has to have fish. Well, if it's in the wrong depth and there's no fish around it, you're not gonna catch anything there. So you need to find brush that's in the correct depth for the day that you're fishing. Today, the brush piles I need to be fishing are probably gonna be more in that like 9 to 10 foot range. That's gonna be kind of a better a better deal for me. There's a little bit of brush right there, some shallower brush. I'm gonna spin around. Again, anytime I see something interesting, I'm gonna turn around and graph it, but I don't waypoint it. A lot of guys drop waypoints on everything. I hate dropping waypoints on stuff unless there's fish there, because if I come back later on, like in a year or whatever, and I have 75 waypoints on my graph, it's really annoying, one. And two, even if you know there's a tree there, if there's no fish on it, there's really no point in fishing it anyway, so I'm not gonna drop a waypoint. So I am definitely not waypoint happy. I only drop waypoints when I see something that I feel like is pretty much a guaranteed fish catch. Or or not guaranteed, but I feel confident that there's some fish there. So we're gonna keep rolling. There's definitely some fish in this little area here. I just don't think they're bass. Normally when I'm looking for fish too, I'll make a video about this soon, but I actually can tell the size of the fish by the size of the dots on the screen and the size of the arches on 2D sonar. And I'll have a video coming about on the main YouTube channel pretty soon about that. But that's kind of how I decide a lot of times if I'm gonna fish a spot, is if I see dots that are bigger that look like they could be largemouth versus the small dots that are probably crappie and panfish. That's the advantage of having the ability to graph with 2D sonar down imaging. The first spot we pulled up on, we were just side imaging exclusively. And when you're side imaging only, it's hard to tell if you're dealing with crappie, panfish, catfish, whatever. And so that first spot, there was like a 50-50 chance I was ever gonna find anything there, maybe even like a 20% chance. So I wasn't that bothered that we can get bit on that spot just because I couldn't verify it with down imaging. I kind of just had to guess on that one. So nothing going on here. We're gonna kind of kick it into high gear and we're gonna head over here, but before we do that, before we get over to this next little stretch where I feel like there's some stuff, we're gonna do a quick giveaway for some Bridgeford beef jerky. We're gonna be doing giveaways. We're gonna give some Bridgeford beef jerky out right now. We're gonna do some Fish Moment offshore jigs in a bit, and also we're gonna give away my old Humminbird Onyx 10 fish finder. So stay tuned all the way to the end. We're only going to do that if we hit 500 people watching this live stream. We're at 200 right now, so share this out with friends, share this out with your brother, your sister, your uncle, everyone, have them sign on. If we can get to 500 live viewers, I'll give away that fish finder at the end of the stream. We have an hour and a half to get there. But let me just kind of scroll through here and we're just gonna kind of go through and let's see here. We got Guy B from North Carolina. Guy, I always see him asking a few questions. Based on just me scrolling through, I like your icon. Not really a great selection choice, but that's how we do it here. Got a case of Bridgeford beef jerky heading your way just for tuning into the stream. So Guy B, just send me an email at info@fishthemoment.com and we'll have Bridgeford send you a free case of beef jerky. Bridgeford's a title sponsor for our live stream, so huge shout out to them for supporting the content here and just supporting bass fishing in general. So big shout out to Bridgeford. And now my camera person can actually eat the beef jerky. They've been wanting to eat this the entire time it's been here, so now that can happen. So I'll put this down here. But yeah, Guy B, just email me info@fishthemoment.com with your shipping address and we'll ship the free case of beef jerky over to you. So anyways, we are on our way over to a new spot. I remember there being something, there's like a ditch or a creek channel. There's something going on out here that I think is shallower. Again, there's no contour lines on this lake and I don't have any of my old contour maps I've made for this lake, so I don't really know where stuff is. But we're just gonna kind of wing it and see if we can find something interesting out here. We are coming up on a little drop right here, which is good. We came up into 7 foot. That's a good sign. There's a bunch of what looks like baitfish on the screen, which is also a good sign. A little bit more activity up on this part of the lake. One thing, guys, that's really important to pay attention to is if your screen is just straight up black, and nothing on the screen, usually that means there's not a huge population of fish. It may not be the most productive area. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hello. That looks really, really good. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I think we got some Christmas trees down here. That looks good. I'm not gonna graph over these, so these might be all bluegill again or perch or something, but I'm gonna stop this. something looks really good right here. Again, we're only in 5 foot of water, 8 foot of water, guys, so I'm not gonna graph over these brush piles. If we were in 15 to 20 foot, I would do that. But if we take a look at the screen here, here's why I'm saying we got something good. Basically, I've been graphing for like 10 minutes and there's been nothing on the screen. It's looked like this on this part of the screen. But over here, you can see, boom, there's a really nice grouping of shadows. And if we zoom in, you can see in these shadows, there's some dots. You have a dot right here, a dot right there, a dot right there. This could 100% be crappie, guys, so I'm not saying that this is bass, but in these shallower brush piles, again, I can't graph over them to tell if they're crappie or bass, so I have to basically just pull up and fish them. These are fish in this brush pile. There's another fish right there. There's, looks like a little bit of baitfish right there. Fish, 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 fish. So there's fish up there. One of those dots look a little bit bigger, so maybe those are potentially some bass. And even if they are crappie, there may be some bass in there trying to feed on those crappie. So we're going to drop a couple waypoints. I'll show you how to do this. Basically, you can just take your screen, pause it, scroll over with your pad, and then mark these waypoints. And then I have my Humminbird Helix units linked together with an Ethernet cable, which allows me to actually transfer waypoints from here up to there, and that's how I line up on this spot. So my waypoints now have transferred from here. I set my unit on standby so I don't burn up my battery. That way I can actually get back to the boat ramp. Now I'm gonna pull this out, drop my trolling motor, and I got some of these waypoints now up here on my fish finder. Let's see which ones they are. Okay, here we go. So I think these are it. I got waypoints from the past or something. I don't know. I don't know. These are it right here, these 11. I guess I had that ditch marked or something, because I don't think I've seen those brush piles before, but those are the waypoints we're gonna go to. And because we got some nice brush, I'm gonna go with my old faithful 10-inch worm to start this off. And we're gonna just kind of roll on up there. We're gonna see if we can see these on Mega 360, because that's really the easiest way to spot these brush piles. And then we're also gonna scan them with live scope to see if we're dealing with bass or crappie or whatever. Again, I'm not like super confident that these are gonna be bass. These could be 100% crappie. So we're gonna do our best here. Oh my goodness. Holy crap. Okay, we're backing up. I haven't even got up to that spot yet. Come look at this real quick. Right here, that is a good sign. This is a big school of baitfish right here. See all those baitfish? And there are fish chasing them. I mean, they are just going after them right now, right on that spot. I'm gonna grab this big 1-ounce spinnerbait real quick. And I'm gonna see if I can get those fish to react, because those look like they might be bass chasing those. They might be, I don't know what else would be in this lake that would be chasing like that, but they are going after them right there. But seeing all those shad is a very good sign, in the sense that if there are baitfish in this area and there's brush, there's got to be some bass around here. Usually that's like the telltale sign that you're dealing with an area that has some good fish in it, is if you have a brush pile, you have some baitfish in the vicinity, there is some stuff going on there. So we're gonna cast this big spinnerbait over the top of them just to see if maybe one will react to it. Suspended. I don't know if these fish are big enough to do that. Okay, they're running from my spinner baits. That's not the best sign that they're big fish, but I know there's some brush down there, so those might just be crappie or something chasing the shad. I don't really know, but I'm gonna focus on the cover. A lot of times if you see bait fish getting chased by fish on your live scope, 95% of the time they're not worth casting at. I normally make a couple casts just to see if I can get one to fire, but most of the time, instead of trying to worry about fishing the, there's a bad cast. Instead of worrying about trying to fish the bait fish, you want to find the hard cover nearby. So right now, I have a brush pile, a big brush pile over here, and I'm gonna throw a 10-inch worm up in there and see if we can get a bigger bite. Normally, if there's bait fish and stuff around, there's gonna be bass hanging out in those brush piles, especially on a bright sunny day. And given the time of year we're in, this brush pile is in 8-9 foot of water, right where we need it to be, right where that thermocline is. Got bait fish in the area, bright bluebird skies, middle August, 10-inch worm in the brush pile. That's like perfect. Oh, golly. There was a bluegill. That was not a bass. I don't know why I set the hook on that. There's a bluegill down in that brush pile for sure. But that's not a bad sign, because if there's bluegill down there, they might be spawning. There's going to probably be some bass around that brush pile as well. Now, what I might have been seeing on the graph is a bunch of bluegill that are still in their spawning mode in that brush. But again, a lot of times if you take that big worm, fire it around those brush piles, you're going to be able to get a big largemouth to come up and eat. There's a couple brush piles to the right and left of me. The one thing I do have, guys, I have my live scope mounted to my trolling motor, and a lot of guys ask how I use the live scope and spot lock at the same time. And basically, I just take the trolling motor off spot lock, scan to the brush or whatever I'm trying to fish, then take spot lock back on. That's pretty much it. I'm in the brush pile right now. It feels really good. I need to focus because I'm going to miss a bite if I'm talking. I do that so many times on camera where I miss a bite because I'm gabbing about something or other, and then I get a small tick or the fish is holding my worm and I miss them. You have no idea how many fish I've lost because of starting a YouTube channel just trying to do that. That's so typical. There's a bunch of brush out here. There's actually 2 brush piles. There's 1, 2, and then I saw a little bit of brush over here. So because there's multiple bait fish balls in the area, I'm seeing the brush. I'm gonna really thoroughly fish this area. I'm not going to just roll through here real fast. I'm gonna really thoroughly fish this, and by thoroughly fish it, to me, that means like making 5 casts around each brush pile with the big worm, then probably take the shaky head worm and also make 4 or 5 casts in there. So I'm basically gonna be making 20 casts, 30 casts around this stuff, and hoping that I hit the right angle, because a lot of times these bass are just kind of cruising and roaming around on these type of areas, feeding on the bluegill. They're not actually set up like on one specific brush pile for long. So you kind of have to just hit the timing right on whether they bite or not. So that's the one thing too, guys. We're out here for 2 hours, and if I'm doing my catch 15 videos or whatever, I'm out here fishing on these lakes for a minimum of 6.5 hours. And it takes me usually a couple hours to even get my first bite offshore. It's very rare that I just go to the lake and within an hour or so I'm catching them, because you have to really eliminate different elements. You have to eliminate the shallow brush. Are they on the steeper drops? Are they on the shallower drops? Are they, you know, what depth of water? What bait's working? Offshore fishing is more complicated than just going down the bank fishing the shallow water willow that's on there. Just because if you're doing that, you kind of can see what you're fishing. Well, with what I'm doing, I have to graph everything first to find the spots. Then I actually have to fish for those fish, and it's a whole process. And so it takes a lot longer to dial in these spots, dial in these areas. But when you find them, you're not going to have as many guys fishing for those fish, and you're usually going to have better results more consistently. It's a lot more work. It's not as simple as, like, I mean, I know a lot of guys would love to just go right over here. There's a mat of pepper grass and just go throw a frog over that pepper grass. I'm sure you catch fish right now. It's all shaded, but we like to fish offshore. That's what we do here. So that's what we're doing. Okay. make one more cast with this 10-inch worm. And I always try to, if I'm fishing a spot that looks good, it has the baitfish, has the fish, all these different things, I like to make casts with several different baits. I'm not just gonna go through here and just throw the 10-inch worm and call it a day. I want to at least give these fish 2 different options, 2 different possibilities. It's very important. Man, they are just chasing bait like crazy out here though. I am surprised I'm not getting bit out of this brush. Okay, so I made probably 4 casts in each brush pile with the worm. I'm not going to go to the shaky head just to give them a little bit more finesse approach. See if that triggers anything different. Oh, one thing I didn't mention that I just do second nature now that I didn't really talk about is I'm currently positioning my boat into the wind. The wind's blowing from this direction, so that way when I spot lock, my boat isn't drifting around and spinning in a circle and stuff like that. And I just do that intuitively now. I forget to talk about it in videos and stuff. But basically, you have your spot locking, and you want to make sure that you're spot locked in a way that your boat is pointing towards the target. So I always make sure that that's the case. I put my boat into the wind as much as possible. It just really helps out. Man, there's so much going on. If you guys come up here, if you bring that camera up here, I'll show you what's going on. It's crazy. It looks crazy up here. I'm just really surprised I'm not getting bit. So I got a brush pile right in front of me here. You can see them over here on Mega 360 as well. So you got a brush pile. There's fish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fish. You got brush piles right here on the Mega 360. I got a little bit closer to them just so I could show you guys. Oh. Oh no, that was a bluegill bite. And I'm glad it was a bluegill bite because my drag set about as loose as I possibly could. Holy cow. That was just a bluegill, that was not a bass. I don't know why my drag was set that loose, holy cow. I'm actually glad I got that. I did that rookie mistake because otherwise I would have lost any fish I would have hooked. Okay, we're gonna make cast over here. There's a couple other like random things that I haven't hit yet, just random little sticks and stuff that now that I'm seeing with the Mega 360. That's one thing a lot of guys that happens is that I get out here and I'll graph 2 big brush piles or something like that, and I'll think, oh, that's where I need to fish. But then off to the right or the left, there's sometimes just like a little stick up or a little, there we go, a little piece of brush that I wasn't expecting to fish, and that's what happened right there. I was talking to you, that's what I'm talking about, missing bites. That's a good one right there. There's a little stick up that I was not expecting to cast at, and that big brush pile didn't have them, but that one did. And there's a nice fish right there. Solid one on a stick up. I didn't even graph, that was because of the Mega 360 right there. But I mean, I got him in the area. I knew there were fish here. That's why you saw me going again and again and again, casting, throwing multiple baits. When you see bait fish, you see the brush, you see the fish down there. Sometimes you just need some persistence to get those fish in the boat. And it's just kind of an instinct thing. On that last spot, I didn't see any bait fish or anything, so I didn't really want to stick around that long. Here we had the isolated cover, had the bait fish, and that's the result right there. Solid little fish. Let's get a weight on that guy, just because why not? That's how we do things. I don't think I'm gonna catch a limit here, but if I do, we can at least get our best 5, you know, why not? That would be crazy in a 2-hour live stream. 2 pounds, 11 ounces, nothing crazy. Just a 2 pound, 11 ounce there. There we go, solid little fish. Need to pay attention more so I don't miss the bites. By the way, guys always ask me about this. This is the Catch Commander scale. I just got it online on tacklewarehouse.com. Use my Tackle Warehouse link if you want to get that scale. Caught that fish on just a black Zoom trick worm. Kind of talked about it earlier. This is one of my go-to baits in August. By the way, I've never caught a fish here in my life. Literally, I've graphed this, I think, one time in December, early December this year, and I was like, well, that spot looked okay. Never caught one here though. I just saw it like in December and was like, oh, that probably could potentially hold a fish later in the year, and that's what happened. But again, black Zoom trick worm, 6.5 inch worm on a 1/4 ounce jewel, shaky head, squirrel head, shaky head. Solid little deal. Just throwing it with an 8 pound fluorocarbon leader, 20 pound braided line main line, 7 foot 3 inch medium heavy action Fitzgerald spinning rod, and a $50 or a $49 Max Pro Abu Garcia spinning reel. So that was that. Okay, well, got the skunk out of the boat. I don't look like a complete idiot. Going live is a little bit intimidating because if I don't catch any fish, guys are gonna be like, oh yeah, he fakes it in all his videos. He has no idea what he's doing. So I'm glad I caught one so you guys know, at least I know what I'm doing a little bit. But anyways, just a side note, it took me 55 minutes to find and catch my first fish. I graphed for, what, like 15, 20 minutes, fished for, no, maybe 25 minutes, fished for 15, 20 minutes. So half my time graphing, half my time fishing. That's very, very typical. And I'll probably graph this area. I'm gonna obviously make more casts here and keep kind of finding out what's going on here. I need to kind of take a little bit more careful approach to where I'm casting and stuff. But what I'm gonna probably do is have to, if I was going to catch them in another video or whatever, I would have to go find another spot, graph for another hour or so, fish for a while, catch some fish. This is kind of how it goes every single time, is I'm just kind of randomly pulling up on stuff that I've never fished before and catching some. So that's how it goes. So let's get some, I'm gonna read a couple comments. I wanna know what people are saying. Let me grab this. This is my wife's phone, by the way, so don't get on to me for my girly background. We want to see another 10 pounder. Okay, well, you know, I don't know if I'm going to get a 10 pounder. That could be a little bit tricky, but we are going to do another giveaway here in 6 minutes for a Fish the Moment offshore jig, and we'll throw in some of these jewel squirrel head shaky heads in there as well, just because I caught a fish here on the stream with them as well. But and I don't know if Jewel's gonna, I'm assuming Jewel will be okay with that. If not, then I'll get them for you guys from my personal stash, if anything. So, gonna drag her around the shaky head though for a few more minutes. Basically all that was is there was just an isolated little stick up or a branch out here. Again, there's baitfish crews in this area, and I feel like I could have just as likely got bit out of that spot there as I could of these other brush piles. Like I mentioned earlier, I think these fish are just kind of cruising and roaming, and they're setting up on these tops. And maybe earlier in the day, one brush pile would be better than the other. Also, there may be a better bait to get these fish to bite. I'm thinking right now, even like seeing how suspended these fish are, it may not be a bad idea to throw a little jerk bait or something over the top of them. Man, there are fish in that brush top in front of me. Honestly, what's the water visibility? Oh God, the water has about 1.5 foot visibility. So we're not really in jerkbait territory, unfortunately. I was like, oh, this could be a great jerkbait spot. What can I throw? Crap. I'm trying to think of something. Big one. I don't know if it's big actually. It's a spinning rod. I'm not used to fishing them on fishing a spinning rod. Oh gosh, darn it. I didn't get a good hook set on that fish because I was talking to you guys. Did you see that? You guys saw that, right? That was like a 2.5, 3 pounder. Out of that same brush pile I just cast in like 16 times. Dang it. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. I wanted to hook that fish. I was not really paying attention, guys. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking to the camera, I miss fish. He was on there. He was probably pulling on it for like 5 minutes. Now I was trying to think of what bait to throw. I was looking at the ground, and a fish had his worm halfway down his throat. So that's 2 fish off this spot. Fish that would have gone about 5 pounds, 5¼ pounds. So not too bad. They're down there. Had to change up the shaky head. They want the shaky head, not the 10-inch worm. That's why I have multiple rods on the deck of the boat. I always have like 7 to 12 rods on the deck of the boat, because sometimes they want the shaky head, sometimes they want the big worm, sometimes they want something else. But right now, seems like that shaky head might be a deal, potentially, if I don't lose them all. I'm not used to throwing spinning gear too. I probably should be throwing this in a bait caster. I normally do, but I thought, you know, why not? I'm gonna throw the spinning rod today. I don't like spinning tackle, as many of you know, for that reason, because I lose fish. But if I was on a bait caster, that fish would have been in the boat. Gosh darn it. Well, hey, you saw him at least, so you don't. Again, that's 2 fish. 2 fish in 1 hour on a lake I haven't been to in 6 months. And I've never fished here in my life. It's pretty solid. This is what you guys see me do in all my videos though, because I never know what I'm doing when I get to the lake. I never have any spots found. I just do this. I literally just drive the boat around in a circle, find some spots with my electronics, cast at them and catch them. I know it's more complicated than that, but that's basically what I do in a nutshell. Oh, come on. Now, both those last couple fish, one thing I will say is they bit it while I was dead sticking it. I was literally just sitting it there. So that's one thing that you'll get clued in on, guys, at times, is like overworking your bait. Like what I'm trying to do is get that bait in that brush pile and just letting it sit there. And a lot of times I let my bait sit in spots longer than other people because I'm sitting here talking to the camera. And I feel like a lot of times in my offshore fishing, I find that I get more bites from than other guys, just because I let my bait sit there for a lot longer than other guys. Sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose, but especially in August, when you're fishing this time of year, you have to just really slow down. Don't try to fish super fast. Don't try to speed your way through anything. You just have to slow it down, take your time, and you'll get bit. Throw a shaky head sometimes if you need to. By the way, I'm gonna pull up this deal here, and I'm gonna pick another winner for some Fish the Moment offshore jigs. Let's see here. Let's do, let's see here. Oh, someone called it. Okay, so we got Darren Clements. Darren, we're gonna hook you up with some Fish the Moment offshore jigs. We're gonna hook you up with some jewel squirrelhead shaky heads, and we're also gonna hook you up with a few jewel bait Versacraws. So Darren Clements, congratulations on winning that. You recommended the jerk bait. I was feeling the jerk bait too. I didn't tell you the water clarity, but you were good there with the jerk bait. So Darren, just send me an email, info@fishthemoment.com, and I will just send us your shipping address, and then also send us some of the colors. If you want to go on to jewelbait.com, send us the colors you want in that Versacraw and the Fish the Moment offshore jig. Otherwise, I'll just send you the ones that I like, and then we'll have Jewel ship those out to you. So yeah, congratulations on winning that. We're going to be doing 2 more giveaways before the end of the night, and if we can get this stream up to 500 people, we are currently at 268, guys. That's pathetic. I even caught a fish live on stream, found them, caught them on a spot I've never fished before, and we only have 268 people in here. Come on now, share it with your brother, your uncle, your sister. If we can get to 500 people by the end of this, I'm giving away a $3,000 fish finder. It's an old $3,000 fish finder, but it has all my GPS waypoints on it, everything, and I'm giving it away to someone who is in the stream. So if we can get to 500, that's what we're doing. So I'm telling you, it's worth it. Just get some people in here. Okay, so we're gonna keep plucking away here. I'm kind of thinking about what other baits I could throw with these fish though, because obviously I caught a couple fish on the shaky head. I probably could sit here and catch more fish on the shaky head if I just sat here all day. That's kind of boring, to be honest. And I don't really like sitting and just like milking spots for all they're worth. That's not really my style either. I I like to find new stuff. That's kind of what I like to do. So we might even move to a new area here in a second, but I'm gonna, oh, there's one. They don't want me to leave. Oh, it says that's not. Of course, the one where I notice him bite is the smallest fish of the night. But hey, another fish, third fish, not a big one, but just a little guy. Nothing compared to the last couple. Okay, maybe I don't need to leave. Maybe I should just stick it out here. I feel like I got fortunate to find these fish so quickly, so I might just stick it out here and do some live fishing for you guys. You got to see, if you guys didn't see me find these fish, I literally found these fish live if you're just joining in. So I literally haven't been in this lake in 6 months. I just launched the boat and just went. And you saw the whole thing on live. I showed you what the fish looked like, all that stuff. So yeah, go back and watch the stream, the beginning of the stream if you want to check that out. But what else can I throw in these fish? I kind of want to throw like a drop shot because a lot of these fish are suspended off the bottom. And I feel like if I threw a drop shot down there, I could get these fish to bite, or a fluke. I'm thinking about throwing a fluke. One of those two things though sounds like a good option. But I don't want to change from the shaky head because, well, now I'm catching little ones. Okay, that brush pile is full of little ones. I don't know why. Get down there, fish. Don't know why that brush pile is full of little ones. Fire back over at this one that had the big ones. Like I said, there's a lot of fish around this area. When you see the baitfish, stuff like that, that's the fourth fish we've had bite in a little while. That's why you graph offshore, guys. Obviously, those last two fish were not big. I get that, but they could have been big, and the first two were 2.5 pounders. So just in that little bit of time, I was able to pull up here, catch 4 fish. This is very typical for my normal days when I go out to lakes, is I just find these spots, and it's the reason I'm able to find these fish consistently is because I understand the bass behavior on it. I understand how deep I need to be fishing by either looking at the thermocline, the water clarity, whatever it is, and then also knowing how to use your side imaging, your down imaging, all that stuff. Super critical. I have a bunch of videos on my main YouTube channel already talking about this, but if you guys want more insight on that and want more information, I can make more YouTube videos and just keep them rolling. I can update my old ones. Just let me know what you guys want and I'll make it happen. But right now you just need to share out the stream so we can get 500 people in here, and that way we can get that hummingbird onyx and we can give that out. So let me change out my worm real quick. And I'm also thinking about throwing a little fluke up there. Something, give him something else to look at. Let's see here. Throw on, and basically all I'm throwing here, guys, is a little Zoom trick worm, 7-inch black, all black Zoom trick worm. I learned this in North Carolina from those guys over there in Raleigh. They threw a black trick worm a lot when I was there in August a couple of years ago. And ever since they taught me that and they kicked my butt using it for like a week straight, now I am a black shaky head fanatic in the, oh, don't fly out of the boat, I need you. Okay, there we go. Black shaky head fanatic in August. It's one of my favorite August offshore lures, is that black shaky head. Okay, let's see. There's so much brush around here though, like seriously, it's everywhere. There's brush piles like around the boat, like 360 degrees. I saw a couple of them, but I didn't want to graph around too much because the more you graph in these shallow brush piles, the more these fish can get spooked. Again, these brush piles are in 8 foot of water. So I'm trying to keep my distance, kind of be stealthy on them. I think that that's helping me get these few bites I am, but if I had graphed over this area 15 times to show you guys where all the brush piles are, probably wouldn't have been as effective. So that's kind of why I'm taking it easy, just using, that's the reason that really helps having the forward-facing sonar. It's made me such a better fisherman with the live scope and the Mega 360 both. I don't need the live scope right now. Mega 360 is sufficient to see these fish and to see all the brush and stuff like that. But it's nice to have both if you can afford it. So that's kind of the deal right now. I'm gonna throw that worm out there, and I'm going to pull out the rod. Let's see here. Pulling out another spinning rod. This is not normal. Let's see here. Can I even get these rods out? Goodness. I got a tangled mess going on here. There we go. Get that back in here. Okay. So one other bait that I've thrown this time of year in these brush piles in this situation that's a little bit tricky, a little bit sneaky, is a fluke. And a fluke is not normally a bait you would think to fish offshore, but because we're fishing only an 8 foot of water right now, a little striking caffeine shad and the spinning rod, just fish super slow over these brush piles, floating it over the top of them in August is a great way to go about catching fish. So there's baitfish in the area. I'm gonna throw on this little fluke on the spinning rod here. I'm gonna finish out this cast because this is the cast where I caught my first 2.5 pounder. But I'm gonna give these fish a little bit different look because honestly, you can throw that shaky head in there, you can get a few bites, but changing up your bait once you start getting bit is really important. And I always almost get to the point where I switch baits too soon, where I probably should be milking my areas for longer, but I like to always keep something fresh in front of those fish, and that's really important to me. So I didn't really have everything prepared. I honestly thought the water was gonna be way clearer. I had like a football jig on, a deep diving crankbait, a flutter spoon, and when the water is so dirty, those are not the baits to be thrown. Maybe a deep diving crankbait, but even like then, it's only 8 foot deep in these brush piles. So I'm gonna cut off all my clear water stuff. This is what I talk about when I say fish the moment. You have to adjust with the conditions. You can't go and have preconceived notions about how deep the fish are going to be, what you're going to catch them on, anything like that. I'm always shifting and changing because when I get to the lake, the conditions are never quite what I expect. And that's why I don't do a lot of planning that much pre-fishing day when I fish offshore anymore, because I used to mark a bunch of spots on the map and do all this stuff. But basically what happens is that if those fish are shallower or deeper than you expect, all those spots you mark on the map are useless. So I just go out day of and just kind of wing it and just use my electronics and just use my instincts to catch them. That's always worked out way better for me. So we're gonna fire that fluke out there. I'm gonna kind of fish this fluke almost like a jerk bait over the top of these brush piles. So I'm letting that thing sink, and I'm just gonna get it down in the brush. It takes a while to sink down there, but the water isn't that deep that you can let it sink, and takes like 10 seconds to sink down 8 feet. But I'm just gonna let that thing sink down there super slow around that brush, and I'm just gonna hop my rod like that. And it's almost like fishing a hair jig, but around the brush, it's just this fluke over the brush piles. And when they're shallow brush and stuff like that, that white caffeine shad 5-inch profile big bait is deadly if they are down there. And they're down there. Okay, let's get a couple questions while I'm fishing this fluke absurdly slow. Oh, 1 second here. Okay, get a couple questions going. throw a GoPro to see how the fish react to the bait. I do have a way to do that, but hopefully this is working. Okay. Everyone's just spamming baits to throw. So people are saying throw a flutter spoon, a fluke, throw everything in the tackle box. Okay, I got you guys that you want me to throw every bait in the tackle box. Unfortunately, not all those baits are gonna work in this situation. Guys are asking why not throw a swim bait. Water visibility is too dirty. If it's not really probably going to be as effective when that water visibility has just a foot and a half visibility. You want something that's a little bit more stand out, or you want something that sits in their face longer. This fluke is great because it's kind of like a swim bait, but it stays in their face longer. That swim bait, you have to reel it past them, and they don't get a good enough chance to look at it. Oh gosh, there was one. Probably a little guy. and that basically I'm fishing this fluke almost like you would fish a Senko, but I'm fishing it in like 8 foot of water. And I'm kind of hopping it and letting it fall back down. So that's why I'm not throwing a swim bait. Why I'm not throwing a spoon, because I'm fishing a brush pile in 8 foot of water and I probably would get hung up. Bunch of different baits I could throw, guys, and 100% get that there's other things I could be throwing. But just these are the baits I have confidence in as well. That's the thing. So we had some initial bites here. We caught 4 fish right off the bat. And now that we've done that, the fish are kind of dying down. So there's 2 options here. I could sit here and just grind at these fish and just keep fishing, keep fishing, keep fishing. And I think a lot of guys would do that. They would keep grinding at these fish, trying to get them to bite. I'm not that way. I like to just kind of roll with it and try to find something new. And that's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna kind of do a quick scan around this area with the live scope just to see if there's anything else I'm missing, like any little nooks or crannies that I'm not hitting. Something going on right there. Let me pull out the crankbait real quick. There's fish on a hard drop right there. Burn the crankbait over. There's a couple fish that I'm just seeing on the live scope. They're just in this general area. They're not exactly doing anything in particular. They're just kind of roaming, which is not really the fish I'm wanting to fish for usually. But let's give it a shot real quick. Just a couple casts with the crankbait. When these fish are in this late August mode, I find that the ones you just kind of see roaming around are really tough to catch unless you can get exactly what they're feeding on. So I don't really bother that much. I like to focus instead on the hard cover, the hard brush, stuff like that. Maybe fire this crankbait across that brush, just one cast. See if a big one's down there and we'll eat it. And then we got about 45 minutes left. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go try to find another school of fish, because why not? We should just keep graphing. I know that's kind of what you guys wanna see. You don't wanna see me just sitting here fishing for nothing. I mean, I've caught 4 fish, so it's not nothing, but I know you guys want me to see me find more fish. So I'm gonna try to find another school of fish, give the viewers what they want. That's how we do it here. Just give the people what they want. Let me just make a couple more casts. I'm just trying to see if I can get a big one out of here, because I could sit here the rest of the day, guys, and catch a limit of fish. I've caught 2 2.5 pounders and 2 shorts. So I can guarantee you if I stayed here all day, really milk this with a bunch of different baits, I could catch a limit of fish right here, no problem. There's enough bait fish and brush and everything around here, but we only have 2 hours on the stream. So basically, we gotta keep rolling. So put all these rods up, and we're gonna get rolling. Okay, so let's get back to it. We're gonna start graphing again. While we do that, I'm just gonna read off some of these comments real quick. Guys have said throw in the 6-inch mag draft. I've caught some fish in the 6-inch mag draft in the pre-spawn and in the like the winter time. It doesn't work that great for me in August. It's not a great August bait, honestly. You can catch some fish on big glide bait and stuff up shallower, but offshore, just not really that great. I find that it works really well in March, February, even like December, that time of year, even like late November when those fish are really keyed on big gizzard shad. But when the fishing's tough like this, guys, I mean, we're fishing literal dog days of summer. When you're fishing dog days of summer, you don't want a big profile bait usually. You want something that's subtle, that isn't gonna draw a lot of attention. I know a lot of guys recommend a lot of baits that just, based on my experience offshore fishing this time of year, August, on lakes like this, a big worm can work sometimes, but the best baits in the world a lot of times are just a shaky head worm, just a black shaky head will get you more good bites, big bites, and then also a medium diving crankbait can catch a lot of good fish too, if those fish are really chasing shad and moving back into the creeks and stuff. The water temperature here is 84 degrees. That's not normally the best deal. When the water temperature is 84 degrees or higher, like usually if it's above 80 in the summer, like this time of year, I'm still going like real slow with a big worm and maybe catch them cranking if it's windy and cloudy. Otherwise, what I'm trying to go for is those slow, subtle baits. Now, as the water temperature drops below 80 degrees, you start getting the thermocline to start mixing up, the lake starts to turn over. That's when you can go back to some of those bigger baits, and those bass start moving back into the creeks and they start getting on the migration pattern. But when the lake is still hot, you still have 90-degree days in the summertime down here in the south, you gotta really slow down and go to those finesse baits. That's kind of what I've just found. Okay, so we're graphing again. Found those last group of brush piles in 9 foot of water. So I kind of want to do the same thing. I'm just going to keep graphing for brush in 9 foot of water and see if we can find any more balls of baitfish, find an area that looks kind of interesting. We have 40 minutes. So it took us 40 minutes to find our first offshore spot. So maybe before the sun goes down, we can find one more. We're going to keep graphing. Again, for those who didn't catch the stream, I basically started out way over there on the other side of the lake, graphed the entire lake or halfway around the lake, found the spot to fish, caught those fish. If you're watching the stream, you can go back and watch it live, or watch the live stream on YouTube once it posts to YouTube, so you can go check that out. So if you missed that part, I already kind of did this, but I'm going to do it again just to see what we can do. Now, let's see what else guys are recommending. 290 people in here. We still got plenty of... Let's see here. We still got plenty of people that need to be joining in if we're going to give away the fish finder. If we don't give away the fish finder, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. But what we'll have to do is we'll have to give it away some other time. But yeah, I want to give away that fish finder really bad. So definitely get 500 people on the stream. We've had 500 people before on the stream, but not tonight. I'm not sure why. Anywho, let's keep rolling. So there's some kayakers over here, so they're right on my stretch of area where I've caught them before out of brush piles. So they're kind of right on top of where I want to be, so we may have to just kind of work past them. I think one guy's actually sitting literally directly on top of the one shallow brush pile I knew of before we came to this lake. So we're just gonna have to give up on that, unfortunately. But no matter, we're just gonna keep graphing. Okay, so now that we're kind of graphing around here, and we've been graphing for a while, and you're trying to find your second spot. We found our first spot, brush piles, 9 foot of water, kind of in the mouth of a creek. Because these guys are over here, what I'm thinking we might want to do is head back over to that creek where we started. Because if we're trying to develop a pattern, I'm thinking that the best way to go about that is to try to find a similar looking area. There's not really any other major creeks in this area that would hold a bunch of fish other than that one creek over there. And I didn't really graph it thoroughly when I was over there. I started my day over there. So hopefully if we get back over there, maybe there's some fish that we didn't see or that we missed. Because I'm not seeing much around here. No, not seeing much. So no bait fish. Brush piles out here are a little bit too deep for what we're looking for. So I'm gonna just head across the lake, and I'll kind of show you on the screen here where we just were. We take a look at the, let me grab that from you. Take a look on the screen here. This is where we got our first fish right here, is in the mouth of this little creek right here, and there was some brush and stuff. This creek is choked out with grass usually, so I didn't even go back in there. This is the only other like real creek. There's some stuff over here, but it's too deep. It's like a steep creek. This is a nice flat creek over here, and I've never caught fish in this creek before in my entire life. But I never caught fish here before in my entire life either. So that probably is a good sign. So I'm gonna head off over here, and basically, if you head to this area of the lake, then hopefully we're gonna be able to find an additional set of brush piles in that 9 foot zone in the mouth of a creek, and maybe try to duplicate our pattern. One person said, show us the best way to cut someone off. That's not my style. The kayakers were over in that area first, so I just move, I leave. I'm not a big fan of getting in other people's way. Other people cut me off all the time on the lake, and I know it annoys me, so I don't do it to other people. I just kind of stay in my own lane, stay away from everyone else, and that's kind of how I do it. I kind of just go to my own areas. I don't fish around a lot of other people, and I find it more enjoyable that way. I don't like bumping boats with other people, getting right on top of them. I feel like I can find my own fish well enough to not have to jump into the same area where like 15 other people are fishing, because either they found their fish there before, or it's a giant community hole and those fish are getting pressured. Either way, I don't want to mess with it. I just go find my own stuff, my own areas. Let's see here. Some people are giving me some suggestions on where to go fish on this lake. I'm not going to take any help, but I appreciate the sentiment. I don't like, one thing I have found is that if I try to fish other people's fish, it never works. That's one thing that I see a lot of guys struggle with, is they try to go fish the spots that I fish in my videos, or they try to go fish what other people have done. And one thing I found just in general is that it's really hard to catch other people's fish. That's like rule of thumb. Don't fish for other people's fish. It doesn't work out very well. I just try to fish for fish that I know are there, that I've caught, or that or in areas I find. And for me, it makes me feel more accomplished, that I'm not whole jacking other people, but also I feel like it makes you a better fisherman over time. If you learn to find your own fish, yes, it's harder at the beginning, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, I have a couple marks out here and I have no idea what they are, so I didn't know if there was like a road bed or something out here. I have a bunch of marks. This is why I don't like looking at old waypoints I have on my fish finder, because I have no idea what they are. This could be the best spot in the entire lake, or it could just be literally nothing. And it looks like it's actually something, which is a surprise, because I didn't really know it was out here. It actually looks like a good drop, but despite that, I don't know if there's anything here. There's a nice drop off, but there's no bait, there's no fish, nothing. So I think that a lot of these fish are more like halfway back in these creeks, which is really interesting, because that's not at all where I expected to find the fish today. I thought I'd find them out here, like out in the middle where I'm at right now, on these drop-offs that are deeper, some deeper brush piles. And that just goes to show too, you got to keep an open mind. I didn't come here with preconceived notions necessarily that I had to fish out in the middle. I basically said, I'm going to graph around the entire lake until I figure out where the fish are, and then I'm going to fish. I'm not just going to pull up on old waypoints and start fishing. And I feel like that's what a lot of guys do when they start fishing offshore, is they find a road bed or something like this, they mark it and they just start fishing. Or they see a guy catch fish out of a brush pile 2 years ago and they pull up on that same brush pile and just fish it. Not really going to work. If you understand your fish finder and understand how to find key areas with brush, with cover, with bait fish around, you're going to be so much more effective and you're going to have a lot more fun fishing. So that's how I do it. Let's get some more questions here. What are your thoughts on frog fishing that grassy area? I would love to frog fish that grassy area right now. I love throwing a frog. The only reason I'm not doing it is because this live stream is about graphing, offshore stuff. But I would love to go throw a frog up in that grass. I have a frog in the boat, and I don't know if I catch any fish, to be honest. I don't know. I don't fish shallow enough anymore to have a good instinct about what to do up shallow, which is kind of hilarious. I wish I knew more of, or I wish I had a better instinct up shallow. But really now I use my electronics and stuff so much that that's really my game now. That's where I focus my energy. And for better or worse, obviously it works out for me a lot of times, but I feel like sometimes it doesn't necessarily always do me right. Okay, just found another brush pile. Need to stop talking. Found a series of brush piles right here, which looks sweet. Okay, just found something. So let me spin the boat around. There's some guys right here. Kind of loop around real quick. To stay away from these guys as best I can. So here is this area. Let me pull it up on side imaging. Right here, if we zoom in, you can see right here that there is there's a bunch of brush right here. There's a hard drop and there's some dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. And if we scroll up, you can see there's more brush and there's more dots right there. And this is the deal, like right in there. So I'm just gonna drop a waypoint on that really fast, here and here. And then I'm gonna try to get on the engine so I don't drift or get off the trolling motor, so I'm not drifting into these people. I really don't like messing with other people too much. I know they're just like crappie fishing over there, so I don't think they mind, they're anchored down, but at the same time, I don't like messing with people. That's just kind of my style. Okay, let's get up here. Okay, so I got some brush down there. I'm gonna pull up my shaky head again. There's a bunch of fish on the live scope up here. I mean, a bunch of them. Right up there. Okay, so I'm gonna spot lock us here. There's a little bit of a drop and there's a little bit of brush down there. I don't know exactly what's going on down there. I saw some brush. I'm not seeing as much though on the live scope. Like that last spot had like really defined brush. I think these are just some old limbs or something. It's probably an old brush pile. Doesn't look like it's that great, but if you come look at the live scope up here, holy cow, it's like loaded up with fish. This is when you know you're in a good area, guys, is when you drop the live scope and you just scan right or left and you just see fish all over the place. These are out in front of the boat. These fish are not probably that catchable just because they're just swimming out here. But what happens is that these fish that I'm just kind of seeing out here, they're really just out to the side. On this side of the boat, these fish are gonna pull up into these brush piles that I marked earlier, and that's where those fish are going to actually ambush and bite. You'll see these fish that are out just here randomly, and yes, you can maybe try to cast at those fish and maybe get lucky to get one of them to bite, but usually that's not going to be the best strategy for you. Instead, what you want to do is you want to find hard cover in and around where those fish are hanging out, and you're much better off. So let me, speaking of people cutting you off, oh goodness. What you gonna do, you know? That's how I think about it. What you gonna do? Okay, we're gonna roll, because, you know, why not? And we're just gonna pretend like that didn't happen, you know? And keep rolling. I'm not gonna get on the big engine yet. I'm just gonna get on the trolling motor so I don't get in their way. Anyways, so yeah, this is something that happens too when you fish offshore a lot, and you just kind of have to get used to it. Now that I do this enough, people driving over the top of your area, running over your fish, that's super common. So you just have to have a good attitude about it. Most people just don't know any better. They don't know I'm out here fishing a brush pile or something like that. There are fish in that brush pile though. They just drove right over top of it. I could probably come back in like an hour and fish it, but we're gonna be done with the stream by then. So I'm just gonna, there was a bunch of fish around here. So what I'm gonna do is, normally I don't do this. Normally I like to graph these spots, but I'm just gonna kind of see just past where they drove over the spot, see if there's any sort of brush. There's a little bit of brush up there. I'm just gonna fire up here. They drove like right through here, so I think we should be good. And there's some more brush piles that I marked up here. So we're just gonna pretend like that didn't happen and keep fishing. There's so much activity though. That's one thing, guys, I think that a lot of guys mess up on when they fish offshore, is that they try to focus so much on the structure and the cover that they don't look for fish and baitfish activity. That is so key when you're trying to find fish offshore. If you're not seeing a bunch of bait, a bunch of fish on your down imaging, on your, just your 2D sonar up front, your forward-facing sonar, you're usually not going to be in a very productive area. Even in this area, I'm not seeing these balls of baitfish swimming around and getting chased around, which just makes me feel like I'm not in the right area. If you see those baitfish chasing and moving, especially on lakes that have a bunch of shad, like this one does, that's when you know that you're in a productive area. That area where I caught them earlier had the baitfish. This area, even just dropping the trolling motor for 5 minutes, I can just tell that there's not nearly as much baitfish activity up here. Now, does that mean that there's no fish up here? No, definitely can still hold fish in an area like this because they can be feeding on bluegill, they can be feeding on perch, other things, crawfish. So just because you don't see shad in the area doesn't mean you can write off the area. But when like on that last spot where I caught those fish, I spent a lot of extra time making more casts, more presentations on that spot because I saw all the baitfish. I saw all the elements I needed. On a spot like this, where I'm only seeing, I'm seeing some fish, I'm seeing some cover and structure, but I'm not seeing any of the bait fish, I'm not gonna waste too much time fishing here, just because if I don't get bit in 5-6 casts on this spot, the fish I'm marking may not be bass, they could be crappie, they could be something else. And if I'm not seeing a bunch of bait fish activity in the area, it probably means that there's maybe not a good concentration of the bigger fish, the bigger bass that I'm looking for. So bait fish activity is key for me. On certain lakes, that activity is going to vary. So if I'm on a lake like a lake up north, for example, I'm really focused more on bluegill perch. Or on a lake down south like this, I'm much more focused on catching fish around shad, gizzard shad, the blueback herring, threadfin shad, stuff like that. So we're just gonna creep up here a little bit further. There's a couple more brush piles I have marked from way in the past, so we're gonna see if there's anything on those real quick before we move on. And then we're gonna do a quick giveaway, and then I'm trying to think about what we should do next after this, because we don't have too much time to find another area, unfortunately. We're kind of out of time. This area I think may have had some fish, but that boat literally engined over and stopped right on top of the fish. So there may be fish there that were catchable, but that's normally not a great sign for those fish. So we're just gonna move on up here. There's a brush pile right in front of this boat dock. I'm just gonna throw a shaky head in there for just a second because I know from the past it's there. And then after that, I might just sit down and do a little bit of question and answer, maybe some retrieve stuff. I caught 4 fish on stream on live. I feel like that's pretty productive. I showed you guys the whole process and everything, so I feel like mission has been accomplished, and so I don't want to spend too much time just kind of randomly casting around. But let me cast this brush pile, just see if I can get one more fish for you guys in the boat, and then after that we will call it a night and just answer questions. We're not going to call it a night, but I'll answer some questions, maybe do some stuff on retrieves and stuff like that. So let's see if there's anybody home up here. Man, that grass up there though is calling my name for a frog. I love frog fishing, guys. I just don't do it because it's hard to throw a frog in 15 to 20 foot of water. All jokes aside, I would love to fish up shallow more. You guys just really like the offshore content, and that's what just gets the best engagement and stuff. So that's what I focus on, is the offshore stuff. But I may have to do I've done a frog video actually on this lake, and I've hammered them out here before, caught some big ones, and the video got like 4,000 views. So if you want to watch a great frog video where great blow-ups, great fish catches, you can just type in Fish the Moment frog fishing, and I talk all about it. And I caught some really big ones, but no one watched the video. So, oh gosh, there was one right there. There's a brush pile right in front of this boat dock. One just inhaled it and then dropped it. This is a perfect example of fishing history, and this is not what I ever recommend anyone to do. but sometimes it does work. It works in this situation right here, but I'm obviously that first spot I found was the best spot we found. And if I was in like a catch 15 video, I would have probably stayed on that spot where we got those first couple of bites the entire day, or maybe 3/4 of the day. Because on a small lake like this, there's normally not that many areas that hold big concentrations of fish. If you're on a bigger lake where you can run around and move to different parts of the lake, it's so much easier to do that. But on a lake this small, usually there's one really good area that holds good quality fish offshore, and the rest of the time they're pretty much just not doing anything. So that's what I found, at least. So if I was really after just trying to catch as many fish as possible, that first spot we found, I would probably have just stayed there 90% of the day, and that would have been the deal. But looks like nobody's home in this, so that's why you don't fish history. I have one little bite probably from a bluegill. So got about 40 minutes left on the stream, so I'm gonna do a couple things. One, I'm gonna do a giveaway real quick. I'm gonna pick up the phone. I'm just gonna do for a giveaway, we're gonna do a $75 mystery pack of fishing lures. So $75 mystery pack of fishing lures for all the people who are here. So let's just do a quick little deal. Let's see who. So Josh Murphy, got a great question here. Josh, I'm gonna have you do the, or you're gonna be the winner for our $75 bait giveaway. It's like a bait pack, stuff like that. So $75 bait pack coming your way. Just send us an email. I'll turn the camera so you guys not looking right in the sun. $75 bait pack. Just email me at info@fishthemoment.com and we'll send that over to you. So that's Josh Murphy. His question is, do you use a braid to fluoro leader on a bait casting setup for a Texas rig old monster? No, I never use braid to fluoro on a bait caster. I know a lot of guys do that. I don't like to have any extra connection knots or anything that could potentially fail when I'm fishing. I would rather just prefer to throw straight 20-pound or 15-pound fluorocarbon. I know it's more expensive. You can save money if you just go braid, tie that to fluoro. I know that that's cheaper and everything, but I've just been old school and I just like straight fluorocarbon on all my bait casters. Now on my spinning rods, I always do braided line, 20-pound braided line or 10-pound braided line to a 8 to 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, sometimes even a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. And I tie that with an FG knot. That's the best knot. And I do that because on a spinning rod, you get a lot of line twists. That's the only reason that I'm doing that, is just to eliminate that line twist. Other than that, I wouldn't do the spinning rod, or I wouldn't use braided line. It's just not really my deal. Now, if I'm throwing like a frog, a buzz bait, something up shallow, yes, I'm going straight braided line. But I never do braided line to fluoro on a bait caster. I know some guys even do that for flipping and stuff, and they're flipping grass. We don't have a lot of grass to flip around here, so I don't really do that. I don't do a lot of shallow water fishing in general, so I just prefer to do straight fluorocarbon. So again, Josh, send us over in your email, info@fishthemoment.com, and we'll get you hooked up with that $75 bait pack. Okay, and then Frank says, one more big one. Let's see here. Okay, one more big one. You know what? For Randy, I'm gonna go, and we're gonna go find some grass, and I'm gonna go throw a frog. I'm gonna show you guys, because why not? We're just gonna go, we're gonna play to the crowd. Seems like people want the frog action, so I'm gonna go try to pull out some fish the moment instinct, and we're gonna go over here. I have a frog tied on. We're gonna go throw one for just like 10 minutes here while the sun's fading, because I don't think we have enough time to find another offshore spot, to be honest, and I think we can catch one. So let's go try that. We're actually gonna go back over to the area where I was catching those fish offshore, just because I know there's a lot of bait fish in that area. And that's one thing that I do, a lot of guys don't think about, is I will use my graphing offshore to dictate where I fish up shallow. That's something that I don't really talk about that much because I don't fish up shallow. But what I'll do is, like in an area over there where I was catching those fish offshore with the shaky head, those fish are in 8 foot of water out in the middle of the creek. And while there's a lot of bait fish activity and everything, and you can catch them offshore, because there's a lot of bait fish activity in that area, it means there's probably going to be a concentration of fish both offshore and shallow in that exact same stretch. Especially this time of year, as we get into the fall, you'll find offshore and shallow fish set up in the same exact areas. So I'm gonna roll over to that same spot where we were earlier, but instead of fishing offshore, I'm just gonna roll up to the bank and fish down a stretch of grass that we saw earlier. That's kind of the deal that I like to do when I fish shallow. I actually graph the areas that I will fish before I actually go fish up shallow. It works really well, especially if you're on a little bit deeper, clearer lake, because you can see where the bait fish are within the creek. If there's a lot of bait fish in the middle of the creek or down the banks and stuff, you know that there's probably a concentration of fish in that general area. And that's kind of that's how I've always done it. I don't like to just up and randomly fish down the bank. That's never been my style of fishing. I like to have some sort of rhyme or reason to why I'm catching my fish. And so graphing first, graphing through a creek, even if it's just driving through the creek, the center of it, and seeing is there bait fish activity in this creek, can make a huge difference in your success than just randomly pulling into a bank or a creek and starting to fish. Now, it may not work, and honestly, a lot of the fish that are going to be feeding on the frog right now, they're not actually feeding on the bait fish that are out there. They're feeding on bluegill and perch and stuff. They're back in these pockets and coves. They're spawning. But if there's a concentration of bass there offshore, some of those bass might slide up shallow, feed on those bluegill, especially now that we have the lower light conditions. There's a bunch of shade on the bank over here. So that's kind of my thought process there. Maybe not as scientific as the offshore stuff, but either way, it works out pretty well. So I'm just gonna get some questions going here. Oh, 1 second here. I need to get this phone going. Now I'm gonna get some questions. This is my wife's phone, by the way. I don't have this flowery background. If I did, you guys wouldn't judge me, right? Right? Okay, so got the frog. Don't tell Randy you're going shallow. Nobody tell Randy I'm going up shallow. Please, he would give me such a hard time. Let's see here. Just have your wife fish while you video. They always catch the big ones. That is true. And Josh, the email is info@fishthemoment.com. It's also on the website. If you just go to fishthemoment.com, it's at the bottom of the website. Let's see here. Am I wearing Ty? I'm wearing, yeah, Ty Fozy. I think it's a sunglasses or a bicycle brand. I wear these when I go biking, and I thought they look cool. And I don't really need polarized lenses because I don't need to see in the water at all. So I just buy like regular sunglasses. They're like 20 bucks or something at the bike shop. So when I go biking, I wear them. Yeah, he's probably watching. If I catch a bigger fish up shallow than offshore, I might have to change the whole focus of this channel, because at that point it's kind of, you know, game over. But if anything, I hope you guys from the beginning of the stream, if you're kind of just joining late, I did a whole stream or I started the stream where I basically just launched the boat, went out, graphed, found some fish, caught some fish, I showed on the graph, all that stuff. I caught 4 or caught 3, lost 1, pretty good one. And I think that was a pretty solid deal right there, just for 2 hours, going quick. So now we're kind of just finishing up shallow. I'm gonna chunk a frog around, show you guys what's up. Randy would be so proud. Yeah, Randy is gonna be really happy that I'm throwing the frog. So hopefully he's happy, because I'm doing this mainly for him right now. I'm actually doing it for you guys too. I'm doing it for the team. And if I catch like a 5-pounder on a frog right now, I'm gonna get so jacked up because I love catching them on a frog. I have one in the box at all times. I always have a frog tied on because, I mean, why not? And you may be wondering why I'm not running. 2 reasons: there's camera equipment strapped all over the boat. 2, I don't even know if this lake you can run. I think it's just idle only. I always just idle out here anyways because it's nice and quaint and serene. And 3rd, I don't want my wife to like fly out of the boat here while she's filming. Because she got a tough job filming and holding the cameras and everything. She's doing an awesome job. This is our first live stream ever, so big shout out to my wife. She's the real brains and power behind this whole business. So that's the truth right there. So let's get some fish going. Man, this looks so good. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, let's get a frog going. People are saying, put down the life jacket and lay down the hammer. Okay, let's see here. How far deep in my rod box is this frog? Here we go. Spro, bronze eye popping frog. Let's go catch one. The last time I fished down this bank with a frog, I caught 5-pounders or 4-pounders. So this is running straight history. I don't have any other instinct to go off of up shallow. So we're just going off of my history up here. There's some nice moss laying on the water. it looks just beautiful. So with the frog, I like to fish my frog pretty quick with this popping frog. I don't know how everyone else does it. I used to fish a frog a lot on the Arkansas River back in the day. I used to be a river rat, if you guys could believe it. I actually was known for catching them up shallow on the Arkansas River. That was like my thing. I was a great frog fisherman, a great swim jig fisherman. That was what I was known for until I was like 16, 17 years old, is I was really good up shallow with the frog. That was like my jam. And now it's the offshore game. But back in the day, when I grew up on the Arkansas, or I did a lot of my formative years of fishing on the Arkansas River. So I used to throw a frog, I mean a lot. And same thing with the buzz bait and a spinner bait and a jig. That was like all I did. Although I'm gonna turn this live scope off because we don't need that, and I also don't want the battery in the boat to die. I don't think I charged it enough this morning. So there's a bunch of matted grass up here. Shallower grass. The grass is more matted up there, but oh, because of the video quality's fading because of the light probably, right? Or is it because we're back in the cove? What's going on? Oh, the cell coverage. Crap. Okay. Well, maybe this frog bite literally is not meant to be, guys. Let me get back out here in the middle of the cove so we can... I'll get around the corner here. Is it not? Is it better now? Yeah. Okay. Well, can you guys hear me? Let me know in the chat. I literally tried to fish shallow for 2 minutes and the fishing gods wouldn't let me do it. The stream started cutting out. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, you can hear me. Okay. I had to move away from the bank. I'm not even joking, guys. I fished on the bank for 2 minutes and the cell reception just completely cut out. I don't know how that happens, but we're gonna go back over here. We're gonna go back over to these brush piles for a few minutes because they're right around the corner, and we're gonna finish out. We're good? Okay. Yeah.
I think it was just some people.
Oh, it's just some people? Okay, well, I've already moved away from the bank. I think that there's something with the trees or something. I don't really know. With the cell, we're not really 100% confident in this this setup because we've never done this before. So I apologize to get you guys hyped up about the frog and then have to abandon it, but unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna be able to do it because I think it's gonna kill the cell signal. So we're gonna roll over to these brush piles again where I was catching them earlier and see if I can catch one more to finish up the stream. I gave him a good 45-minute rest. I think that's good enough. So, okay, we're good. Okay, so we're gonna roll through here. Basically, again, we found these fish earlier. There's a bunch of shad in the middle of this cove in this pocket. Now I was thinking that we could probably go into this big grass mat back in here and fish, but with the cell service, it's not a thing. So we're gonna get back out here offshore where I truly belong and hopefully catch something. Again, if you haven't checked out the first half of the stream, we basically had caught these fish in a black shaky head worm out in the middle of the creek here, and there's some brush piles. You can check that out, how I found the brush piles, all that stuff. I put it all on stream. You could see me actually finding them and the whole process. So definitely check that out if you missed that. The curse of Randy, oh gosh. Yeah, Randy cursed me. He said you can't fish up shallow, Johnny. It's not allowed. So Randy would not allow it to happen. So apparently I am forever forced to fish offshore. That happened in my last Catch 15 challenge video, guys, or a couple ago. I was on Grand Lake and I fished offshore all day, literally all day. And it was getting to the end of the day, so I wanted to go up shallow and throw a buzzbait for a few minutes. The challenge was winding down, and I thought maybe I could pick up like a big one close to the end and catch a couple big ones, kind of lucky up shallow. And as I was working my way up to the bank, I literally made 3 casts with a buzz bait and start schooling behind the boat. And I pull out there and they're on a ledge and I finish off my challenge. And it was a bunch of luck. Like that was as lucky as it gets. But because I wasn't even looking offshore there. There's one. Little guy. Hey, at least I can catch him offshore though. They're out here. These are little guys. I'm surprised I got 2 2.5 pounders out here and I've had a bunch of little ones, but they're out here. I'm just expecting to get like a 5 pounder out here. I really am. Because there's a lot of times on this lake, when you catch a 2.5, 3 pounder, there are big ones close by. It's just a timing deal. I think there's probably going to be some 3 and 4 pounders, 5 pounders in this area. I'm just maybe not hitting the right cast, the right brush. There's maybe one stick up that the better ones are hanging out on, something like that. But regardless, we are getting bit, which is good. It's always good. And that's what I'm talking about, guys. When you find these fish offshore, that's the nice thing, is that instead of just randomly rolling down this bank here, I may have been able to spend all 2 hours working my way down this bank and catching a couple fish, and I may have caught some decent ones. The problem is that you're only going to be fishing for isolated individual fish. That's why I like fishing offshore. It's why I always strive to become better at it, because in my mind, if you can find them out here, you're going to be able to find numbers, you're going to find the consistency, and that's what I'm always looking for me, more than anything, is I'm looking for that consistent good bite. And if I'm not catching fish every single trip, I get really frustrated, and I find that when I fish up shallow, there's more days than not where I will only get 1 bite or get like completely 0. Or when I'm offshore, it's very rare that I don't catch fish or that I kind of struggle to catch them. So it's one of those deals that I've always just gravitated to that offshore game, and it's always served me really, really well. But I've also found that when I try to go fish up shallow nowadays, either technical difficulties hurt me, the fishing gods intervene, or I just am not very good at it and I just don't catch very many fish. So stick to my lane. And one thing I'm kind of interested too in figuring out, and I've experimented with this thought before, but is there an offshore bite on every lake year round? That's one thing that I've always kind of contemplated in my head. And the only time I find that I don't catch them very well offshore, in all honesty, is when I'm fishing in the springtime. The springtime is that wild card time where I just really struggle to catch them offshore. And it's not that they aren't out there. There's just not the size out there. All those big females are moving up towards the bank. And obviously that's when a lot of guys catch them really well, is in the springtime. Unless there's like offshore grass or like I can find something that's kind of off the wall, I just can't find a consistent offshore bite. I can catch them offshore here and there, but it's very, very inconsistent. This is more like when you get into like late March, April time frame, when they're like right about to spawn and spawning, versus when you're fishing in the pre-spawn, like February, you can catch them offshore no problem on brush piles and in ditches and drains and stuff. Oh gosh, there was one. And then the post-spawn, it gets better. So the only time I feel like you really can't fish offshore and be effective, pull my shorts down, and be effective, is in that kind of like right when they're spawning, that April time. Well, guys, we are pretty much out of time here. We unfortunately didn't hit the 500 viewer goal, so I'm gonna keep that fish finder around, and maybe when we hit another milestone on the YouTube channel or something, I'll give that away. We only got to like 300 concurrent viewers, which is kind of a bummer because I wanted to give that fish finder away. It's just sitting around. But if you guys are staying tuned to the channel, the live stream channel here, and also my main Fish the Moment channel, I'll give that fish finder away sooner than later. And so if you guys enjoyed this live stream, make sure to leave a like down below. Also leave a comment on the actual live stream to let me know if you want more of these on the water live streams. I can do these as much as you guys want. If you want me to come out once a month or something to do these, I can definitely do that. So just let me know if this is the type of content you want from the Fish the Moment live stream here, and also let me know what you guys think of the upcoming YouTube videos I'm having on my main YouTube channel. Tomorrow I'm launching another Catch 15 challenge video on Beaver Lake. It's a really good one. I did my prep video over there yesterday, and then tomorrow morning we're gonna be launching the actual Catch 15 video. So make sure to check out the main Fish the Moment channel. Also subscribe to the live stream channel here, and that way you'll get up to date with all the Fish the Moment content. So thanks again for checking out this live stream, guys. Really appreciate all the support for the 100th live stream, 100th podcast, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. So definitely stay tuned for more content. We'll see y'all next time.